Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 6, our week in review, this time talking about Jainism, one of the traditions that we associate most closely with India. Of course, in previous weeks, we've studied Hinduism and Buddhism, and we actually noted, as in the famous Encinitas court case, that yoga has roots in all three, right? In Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, and we discussed how that played into the judge's uh, verdict in that Encinitas case about the teaching of yoga in public schools. As a group this week, I really thought we had some fantastic questions, and so it was really fun for me this week to read through the posts and respond, in a few places. Let's get straight to our shout outs. So Malcolm had a fantastic post on the Jain views on the soul or jiva, ending with the reflection that it was particularly important that we all consider, quote, the way that all life is seen as possessing some form of soul rather than exclusively humans, unquote. And I think this is one aspect of Jain beliefs that students in this course and others that I've taught regularly comment on, because it just simply jumps out as very different from what we see in practice in lots of religions and other forms of different traditions. So when we watch these videos and we see these Jain monastics like with the cloth over their mouth, which of course a lot of us can connect to now with all the mask mandates that we have to promote public health and protect ourselves and people around us from the coronavirus. But there, it's like wearing this mask around your face and around your mouth and your nose, um, protects insects from you inhaling them, or the images we have of Janes, sweeping the sidewalk or the path in front of them to just get little bugs out of the way, so that there's just this deeply held regard for all forms of life. Um, you know, this is very different, for example, if we compare this Jain position with, say, certain interpretations of the book of Genesis in the Bible, held as scripture by both Jews and Christians, stating that humanity effectively has quote unquote dominion over creation. So we compare these two, and we have two just very different approaches to the way that humans should interact with the world that we find ourselves in. And then building on this thread, let me adjust this. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Manage the lighting here in my garage. Um, Kira talked about the article by Christopher Chappell, who is one of the leading scholars of Jainism right now, I would say, especially here in the US. And, as Christopher Chappell talked about the living cosmos, and the key term that we hear in talking about this, you know, sincere regard for all forms of life that we find in Jainism is ahimsa, meaning nonviolence, which coincidentally we also hear quite a bit of when we talk about Mahatma Gandhi, the pivotal Hindu leader of the Indian independence movement, dating back to the 1930s and 40s. What I thought was so valuable here was the way that Kira brought in Chappell's points that while we think of Jainism as some sort of ideal, eco-friendly religious tradition, that there's a lot more that Chappell thinks that Jain communities could potentially be doing about issues like climate change, or and we included within that the specific things like air pollution. And in this way, I think we see a challenge that arises between theory and practice, especially with regard to issues or problems that are literally global in nature, that they're so systemic, there's so many intersections going on. We could do a whole course just on religious traditions' responses to environmental issues, and actually, that's a good reminder for me to post more and more resources specifically on that particular theme, and I'll make a note to myself to do more of that in the coming weeks. There was also a discussion question on this wonderfully impossible to answer issue concerning the paucity or the relatively small amount of historical records regarding the Jain tradition. This is actually an issue with Hindu scriptures such as the Bhagavad Gita as well, where we just don't have a lot of specific dates. Here I really appreciate Connor's post on this thorny issue, As we see in Connor's post, we find different theories, including the destruction of records by outsiders, but also this more like, I'd say, meta level theory about the very nature of Jain cosmology. That if your understanding of reality is that there is an unending cycle going on, then history becomes less important to keep track of and keep detailed records of than, comparatively speaking, if you have a more like linear frame or sense of time, which is what we find in the Jewish tradition, for example. So these are all great points, and many people brought up many others, but I wanted to just highlight three of them. And then for our conclusion, this is the part where usually I talk about the unit we're moving into for the week ahead. But in this case, we're taking a bit of a pause to take a little bit of a break and review what we've learned so far. So you have quiz 1 this week, and that's all that is due. My hope here, and what I'm trying to build into the syllabus, is a little bit of downtime for you to think about these longer writing assignments that are due later on in the semester. So the first one to think about is this interview with the religious other, and the second one is the new religious movement paper. Now, in the case of the NRM, or new religious movement paper, um, what I'm going to be asking of you in the, at least the earlier due dates, is to turn in like a thesis paragraph and an outline. And then of course the final version of the paper isn't due until the end of the semester. But I would encourage you to take the time this week to review all of your notes, because when you sit down to take the quiz, even though it's an open note, open book quiz, I'm still only giving you 1 hour and you get one attempt at it. And I've seen in the past that when students clearly haven't taken that time to prepare, then people run out of time on taking the quiz, which is a real shame. But if you invest the time ahead, of when you sit down to take it, then I think the way I've set it up, it should flow pretty easily. All right, that's it for right now. If you have any questions, please be in touch. And in the meantime, if you have the opportunity, I encourage you to get out and enjoy this warmer than usual October weather. Even if you have the opportunity, get out some places where the aspen are turning or have turned. I happened to get up to near Ward and Netherland yesterday, and it really was just really, really beautiful. So um, encourage you to take advantage of that stuff. Again, just drop me an email if you have any questions about the quiz or any of the other assignments. And yeah, I look forward to being in touch next week. Bye.